Hello everyone. So again, I welcome you in this second lecture on load balancers. In the previous lecture, we have understood that what are load balancers and how the internal load balancers work. So in the second lecture on public load balancers, I assume that you have already gone through that video so that we have developed some basic understanding of load balancers and also something which are required for initial setup. I assume that you are already aware of. So in the internal load balancers, we have seen that the entire load balancing is to be done inside a virtual network. The one who generates the request and the request that is forwarded to different instances are all inside the Azure environment. And even the load balancer is having the private IP that is actually meant for a within the network kind of communication. Now we'll see public load balancers where any customer might be using any browser or maybe any API or through console wants to use any of the virtual machine which are running uh, the application programs, or you can say the application servers are there, and any customer want to interact to these servers, so the request will go to the load balancers, and then load balancer will distribute or forward this request to the application servers. So we'll see how the things are working. Okay, so let's start and move to our Azure console. Okay, so this is the console screen of Microsoft Azure. Here we are going to do all our uh, demonstration. So I have already created two virtual machine. I have named as virtual machine 1 and virtual machine 2. One machine is a Ubuntu machine, other is a window machine, and on these machine I have already installed a web servers. So in this particular exercise, we are going to demonstrate the use of means how we can make use of public load balancers. Okay, so let us quickly go to the load balancers. So go to click on create, and then you must be knowing that everything must be in the resource group. So I'm keeping everything in this demo load balancer resource group. Okay, I will write here as public load balancer. The reason which I am uh, provisioning this is in East Asia. Okay, and this is standard. This is for public demonstrations. I am keeping as public here, and the tier remains the regional. Then we'll go to the front end configuration. So So for front-end configuration, here you'll get one public IP that is basically to be used for all the traffic to use your virtual machines. So give the name here. So you can give here front-end IP, whatever you can give any name for public load balancer. And you can give the name here for public IP. You can create a new one. So I have given the name public IP load balancer. And other things will be okay. This will remain same. We'll keep on. Okay, click on save. Once it is done, then the next thing is we need to set the backend pool. Backend pool is a collection of resources which are to be taken care by the load balancer. So we'll add a backend pool. So here we have to add the two virtual machine inside the backend pool. We have created the two virtual machines. We'll give here name. You can give any name. Here we will select this network. So our virtual machines are actually inside this network, right? So I have chosen this one, and then you can click on add, and then we select both the machines. Click on add, and then we click on save. So our backend pool is done. Then inbound rules we have to set. So we go to next inbound rules. Okay, so we have to set the load balancing rule, that how the traffic is being distributed among the resources inside the backend pool. So you can say here Okay, so we have one name here. We will choose the same name here. You can give any name. So already we have given front IP address. We have to choose from here. Click here. So this need to be created, and then we select the backend pool, which already we have here. Okay, then other things we keep here. Port number 80. Backend port is also we'll keep it 80. Health probe. Okay, we'll create a new health probe. Let's say health. This is the name of the health probe that we are and going to define for this particular load balancer. Public load balancer, and this is the minimum seconds. We cannot go less than 4 because this is minimum, so we'll keep it the minimum. So probe is basically a kind of short communication between the load balancer and the instances into the backend pool, just to check that the instances or the virtual machines are running properly or not, means they are healthy or not, because the traffic is only diverted to the instances which are assumed to be healthy. Okay, so this is done. Click on save. So okay, so I think we are done with the things that are required to configure. Click on save, and we are done with inbound rules as well. So I think other things are not required at this point of time. We are just looking for a very basic configuration of our load balancer. So we'll click on review and create. So it will do some validation testing, and once it is done, if there is no issues raised, then we can go for creating this load balancer. So it is saying validation passed. Click on create. Okay, so this is what we have created. This was earlier was already created. We have to look for this. This is one that we have created just now. So when you go here, you will find the front end IP configuration. This will give you one IP address. This IP address will be acting as a kind of gateway, or it's a connection point for a load balancer where all the requests will be sent, and from here the load balancer will distribute the traffic to the backend pool resources. So in our case, we have two resources, two virtual machines inside the backend pool. So we'll copy this and we'll go here, and then we'll try to access virtual machine. Means this load balancer. So any request which is sent from the browser, it will go to load balancer, and then load balancer will try to connect the resources which are in the backend pool of the load balancer. So when I enter this, so you can see this is not actually responding. Let us check that virtual machines are actually running or not. So we'll go back here and go to a virtual machine. This is not working. This is stopped. Actually, I have created and stopped it. So let us first make the status running. Then only all the requests will be, kind of taken by the virtual machine, and they will respond. Click on start. It will take some time to, get the status running. So I think it succeeded. We can just refresh it. Both are running. So now we can quickly check that what we will see. So if I go to virtual machine 1, and if I just copy the public address and try to access it from here, so we can see this is the IIS server. This is a window machine. Similarly, we can go to virtual machine 2. We can get the public address from here and try to access it from here. And we find this Ubuntu machine is there, right? Okay, so we'll go back to this load balancer, and this is the front-end IP. And when we enter here, let's see what is happening. So it sends the request to Apache. Okay, so let us quickly again refresh this. Okay, and see what is happening. So you can see in the second time when I refresh, it shows the uh, IIS, means the first request the load balancer is sending to the Ubuntu machine, and the second request it is forwarding to the to the window machine. So we have seen that the load balancer is perfectly working in our case. And you can see sometimes when you make a kind of refresh and there's a possibility that you might find that only one page is shown to you every time. Is maybe the Apache server is only showing every time when you refresh it again. So there's a possibility that the health probe which is being sent by the load balancer to the instances are not properly working. Means there is a no proper request coming from the instance, so the load balancer will assume that the instance is unhealthy and the request is not sent to that instance. So in that case, if out of two, if one instance is not healthy, then every request will go to only one instance. Okay, so let us also see that what are the different scenarios where we don't find the expected output or the load balancers are not working properly. So we'll look to some of the scenarios where we need to check that what are the issues, means how we can troubleshoot the load balancing issues. So let us look into this. Let us look to the scenarios where the load balancers are not working properly, or you can say how to troubleshoot load balancers. So there are two possible reasons that you might occur. So VMs are not responding to the health probe. So there's a possibility that the virtual machines which are in the backend pool, are not responding to the health probe. Health probe is a kind of short request that is sent by the load balancer just to check the status that that the instances are functioning properly or not. So VM may not be responding to this short request. This is one of the reason. The second thing is VM are not responding to the traffic. Maybe the health status is okay, means already the load balancer is directing the traffic to the virtual machine, what virtual machine itself having some issues and it is not going to respond to the customer request. Means the load balancer is working perfectly, health status is perfect, it has request has been sent to the virtual machine, but virtual machine itself is not reacting to the customer query. So we'll see that what are the possible scenarios or reasons for which this one is happening. So VMA in the backend pool are unhealthy. So VM may not be responding because it might be very, very busy, or there may be some kind of fault in the hardware, or there may be some issue that VM is not functioning properly, and that's why it is assumed to be unhealthy. VM in the backend pool are not listening to the prop port. So there is a possibility that there is a port, there's an interface by which these load balancers actually interact with the virtual machine. That port is not functioning properly, so this communication is not happening. And because of this, the the load balancers are not sending the request to this virtual machine, and it is assumed that that particular machine is unhealthy. The health port is blocked by the firewall or NSG. So there's a possibility that any firewall is there, any network security group is already implemented in the system that basically blocks or avoid this kind of communication between the load balancer and the virtual machine, or misconfiguration in load balancer. So there is also a possibility that the load balancer is not properly configured. Let's say there are 10 virtual machines, uh, or you can say there are 10 servers are running, and these servers had to take the request from the client, and load balancer has to pass the request to all these 10 servers. But at the time of configuration of the backend pool, only 9 servers have been included in the pool, and while transferring the request by the load balancer, it only looked to the servers which are in the backend pool, and because one of the server is not included as a backend pool, so that will never be connected, and no of the queries or the request is forwarded to that virtual machine. So there is a possibility of the misconfiguration in the load balancer. The second is the VM might not be responding. It means load balancer is perfectly configured. It is forwarding all the queries to the virtual machine, but virtual machine is not responding or not reacting. So what are the reasons? VM in the backend pool are not listening to the data port. So there's a possibility, like we have seen in the demonstration, if you want to access your Ubuntu machine remotely, then if the machine is Linux or Ubuntu, we keep the SSH port open to connect remotely. If there's a window machine, we keep the RDP port open to connect remotely. At the same time, if you want to access using a browser, when we also open the HTTP port. So there's a possibility that while configuring your virtual machine, And if you want to send request from browser, but the HTTP port might not be might not be open, means at the inbound rules, while you are setting the inbound rules, at that time you have not properly configured, and because of that, the virtual machine is not listening to these port. And the other reason is data port may be being blocked by the firewall or any NSG setting. So you have to just cross check that is there any conditions or a setting you have imposed that actually avoids doing the kind of communication. There's a possibility, as we have seen in the internal load balancing, say that all the resources must be inside the Azure environment. And in our demonstration, in the exercise that we have discussed in the previous video, we have created three virtual machine. Out of that three virtual machine, one we are keeping as a test server and two we are keeping as an application server. And test server is basically making use of these application servers. It is sending requests that goes to load balancer, and load balancer is then forwarding to the application server. So there's a possibility that if during the configuration, if the test server itself becomes the part of the backend pool, then the issues may arise. So you have to be very carefully do the setting when you create your load balancers. You have to very carefully check that what are the resources you are keeping in the backend pool. So these are some of the points, some of the kind of scenarios where the load balancers are not working properly. So if you want to fix these issues, you have to focus on these particular aspects, and you will find that if you keep everything proper, if you look onto this point, you will find that load balancing is perfectly working. That's all in this video, and I believe that you've understood that how the public load balancers work. So we are done with both the cases, internal load balancers and public load balancers in Azure. Okay, so see you in next video. Thank you very much.